Welcome back to the Iron Sights podcast. I'm sitting here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've got Jon Dufresne, better known as, or maybe better known. I know you've got a lot of aliases, man.
A lot of them.
We got Mocha Bear. We've got Kinetic Consulting. We've got Duffy. What should I call you today?
Jon, Duffy are two of the main ones. You could go with that. Mainly because Mocha Bear is a little personal.
Gotcha.
But that's all good.
All right. Well, we'll keep it around. Like Jon works for me today, so we'll stay there. I appreciate you coming in, man. It's we're in Vegas for SHOT Show. This is we're outside the studio, so people that are looking at it on YouTube or seeing us otherwise, it looks a little strange. We're in a hotel room and we've had to work through a few like technical difficulties today, but such is being on the road.
Yeah, I come in and I just step on everything.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, not your fault. This is all on us. So we're rolling today, man, and I could not be more excited about having you in. There was a little bit of me, if I'm being honest, of like I don't know how I got Jon on the show, but there's so many questions I want to ask you, and you've done this before, so this isn't your first time. So people that follow you and know you are going to know you for a lot of reasons. But what I love about you, man, is like when I see sort of what you put out on social media, because I have not had the opportunity to train with you, and I hope to get that soon. Yeah. You're on the East Coast, which makes it hard for me to kind of do that logistically. But when I see what you put out and I talk to people that have taken classes from you or work with you in some way, they cannot say enough about you. And the first thing that comes up, without maybe blowing you up too much, is like, dude, this dude is like one of the most solid dudes I've ever met. So I'm fucking pumped to have you.
Cool. I appreciate that. It's like, they don't tell me that to my face, so it's good to hear third person.
That's why I said it. Yeah. So I know it might be a little weird to hear, but at the same time, like when I meet with, and we spent all day here, sort of yesterday at the show, kind of meeting with people, and people are like, so what are you doing out here? Who are you? And I was telling them, like, man, I have this amazing lineup of people coming in this week, and you were top of the list. Kind of where we're kicking things off. Like, oh shit, okay. So and they, like, yeah, of course, we know Duffy. Like, we know who this dude is. But some of the listeners may not. Yeah. So, and they may not know a lot about you. So I'm going to shut up because this interview is really about you. And maybe just kind of walk us through who you are, dude. Where are you coming from? A little bit about your background. There's some stuff there I'd love to dig into just a little bit before we get into kind of what you're doing now. But my line is usually, start and finish wherever you want. What's up?
Cool. So I'm actually pretty excited about it, about being on the show. I've watched a couple episodes and stuff and seen like some of the interviews, so it's kind of cool. So I'm actually pretty appreciative for it, so thank you.
Oh, you are fucking welcome, man. It's great to have you.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. But with that, right, so my kind of little journey, if you want to call it that, started out, I grew up in South Florida, went off, almost became a firefighter after high school. Like, went to EMT school, finished that, but then went off to the Army.
Okay.
It seemed a little boring just hanging out and like watching TV all day until somebody needed to be helped out of a bathtub. So
I love that. I've had so many first responders on.
Yeah.
We talk about the exciting stories, but like 80% of the stuff is exactly what you just said. So
yeah,
I get it.
If any firefighters or EMTs are like watching this, they're like, yep. Mm-hmm. Bathtub or the toilet. It was just kind of boring as a young 18-year-old, that had a lot of fire, and I was a hyper dude. So I was like, man, always wanted to do the military thing, kind of see what's available. So I had to do the ASVAB again because the one in high school was kind of like I threw it away. I was just like, whatever. They make everybody do that now. But did that again, got a high enough score that I could almost choose whatever I wanted in the Army.
Okay.
So what I ended up choosing was, like, after a little bit of research, was something that would get me to experience something that I wouldn't get anywhere else in the world. So I ended up going into the Ranger Regiment. I went into the Army with a Ranger contract, which only guarantees you a slot in the selection process. It doesn't guarantee you get that. Right, or get selected even. So did that in the Army and spent about 5 years in the Ranger Regiment. Deployed. I was deployed more than I was in garrison or back at home, which most Rangers probably, like, they can all like shake their heads. They're like, yeah, that's how it works. Nowadays, it's kind of switched around because we're doing different things. But after that, I got into, or while I was there, I got into training. And really because I found a passion for shooting, I really enjoyed it. Right? I thought I was good at it at first, like all of us do, or everybody watching does. And what I found on the first time I actually went out and competed was that I sucked. Right? I got humbled. And those of you that probably watched Curris's episode know the story a little bit. But here's kind of the longer version. But I showed up and I see these little cardboard targets, these walls that I can see through. So I'm like, I never get things like that. I usually have
quote unquote in real life.
Yeah,
right?
exactly, right. And I'm like, this is gonna be easy, right? So I'm watching all these dudes and they're like planning things out, and I'm like, what nerds, right? Like planning things, right? So my cocky little
planning things,
exactly. And I was super cocky. I was a little ranger, got back from a deployment. I felt like I knew the world at that point. And I knew nothing. Or as they say, you know nothing, Jon Snow. So once I competed, or I went into that match, I actually saw like some of the shooters. I was like, holy shit, they move quick. And then there was this one little old lady who was probably the biggest piece of that humble pie that I got that day. And she literally walked up with her little cigarette in her mouth, like she was like, wait, like just wobbling up there. And somebody had to load her gun for her, right? It was a local match, so everybody knew her.
Okay.
And they loaded her gun for her, put it in her holster, asked her if she was ready, and she's like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, she turns into freaking Yoda.
John Wick.
Man, and she just started going at it, and she was just tearing up the stage.
I love this story.
She did fantastic, right? She ran that thing like a professional.
Okay.
And I was like, what the hell? Like, she couldn't even unload her gun at the end. Somebody had to do that for her. So afterwards, after the match, like I'm waiting for the scores to come in. You got to wait for them to get posted. And I'm like, come on, refresh. And I'm trying to see this thing. This little lady is like up there, like not even that high up on the scoreboard, right? Because she's a little lady, but she's like in the middle of the pack of like the 100 shooters or so. And I'm down there at like, 80-ish, like 90-ish in the pack out of 100. And I'm like, what did I do wrong, And looking back on it, I'm like, okay, I did a ton of things wrong that I know now, but at the time I just didn't know what I didn't know. So she literally handed me the ego pie, right? And slapped it right in my face. And I was like, all right, I need to figure this out. So as a problem solver, like I like solving problems, I like puzzles and stuff. So I start getting into it. I'm like, how do I get better? So found a guy named Frank Proctor. And Frank is a very, very close friend of mine now. But at the time, I signed up for a class and went over. It was like a 2-hour drive to East Aboga, Alabama at the time, or Lincoln, Alabama, actually. And I was like, okay, let me go check this out. And it was a 2-day class. Slept in my car because I did not have money to get a hotel.
Yeah, this is the thing.
Yeah. And really learned more. And he kind of corrected a lot of issues and little things. And then guess what? I actually had to stop drinking, right? I quit drinking so I could afford ammo. And I started buying more ammo and going practicing almost every day and dry firing more and really got into it heavy. And what I found is like the more you practice properly, the better you get at certain things, just like anything else. And it came to the point where I became the guy that everybody came to and they're like, hey, Duffy, like, I can't shoot my pistol that good. I'm like, all right, I got you, dude. And like help them out and literally sit in the arms room, like with them, like, and dry fire with them and like teach them things until we can get to a range or something. So it became like, it was known. And every time that we had like platoon training, they would be like, hey, Duffy, take all the privates and go teach them how to shoot. And like, I'd be on the side by myself with them and all the senior guys would go shoot on the other side or something. And it was just really fun. So it gave me a passion for helping others too, even though at the time I knew barely anything about shooting. I just knew more than the rest of them. So it was a lot of fun. And after the Army, I continued teaching. I actually started teaching with Frank for a while. And then after that, I got into the security industry and started doing more executive protection work out in LA. And I absolutely hated it. It was not my cup of tea. I didn't like to be an errand boy for somebody wealthy that doesn't care about
the
you.
A-lister, errand boy, yeah.
So personally, it wasn't my favorite, but either way, it gave me some experience and some ideas on how things work. Also gave me a glimpse into a different industry that I'd never seen before, and actually still helps me to today because I still teach a lot of security industry type folks.
Right.
And then, man, it's been a journey from there. I moved back home, went to college, had a full-time job at the same time as doing that, and started building my business. And Aaron Cowan from Sage Dynamics started bringing me on as a teacher.
Right.
And because he just didn't like me winning everything in his classes.
I was just going to ask about this. How did that all go down?
So I signed up for a class because I wanted to learn, right?
Yeah.
And go, and he has these a red patch and a black patch that you can like win in his class.
Oh, I did not know this. Okay.
And the red patches are like everybody that did really well in class. Black patches, like the overall you just kicked ass, right? You did phenomenally. You met every expectation. You scored the highest on the qualifications, all the things. So I had received 4 in a row after 4 different courses, and he was just like, all right, that's it. Like, I can't give you any more of these. Like, I'm just going to have to hire you. And,
I love this.
Yeah. And I was like, cool. Like, I'm down. Let me teach with you. And went around. I taught Sage classes for a couple years and still am technically part of the cadre, but don't teach much for Sage anymore. Mainly just teach for myself. And my company grew as that was growing. And I finished college and I started minimizing how much I was working for that full-time job I was doing. And now it's just me, myself, and I, and I'm starting to grow that even. So it's been pretty cool.
Man, you just you covered all that in a few minutes, right? But there's so much there, man.
There's deepness.
Yeah, I'm going to ask. So how old are you now?
I'm 33.
Okay, so you're a very young man, right? I mean, there's plenty in front of you still, but as I take this back and I'm looking, there's so many questions I have along that journey. First, I've actually never sat on the show and talked with a ranger before, so I don't. But I do know a little bit about the process of becoming a ranger. And you mentioned like you signed in with a contract that gives you the opportunity to go through the selection process.
Right.
What I know and what I've read and what I've sort of studied and tried to be on top of is that selection process is no joke, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into that. And there are people that I've listened to that have written books and whatever else, I'm sure you have too, that come from the world of and what the society and public, particularly Western society, is propped up as, these guys that are at the top of their game.
Right.
They work for other agencies or other special forces branches or in different branches of the military. So without getting too deep into that, can you talk a little bit about this? Because you went from like, I'm bored. I don't want to rescue people out of
toilets
or, and bathtubs and whatever too. I think I'm going to be an Army Ranger now. Like that's not something you just fucking do, man. Like it's that's something that takes a ton of, a commitment, and you just flashed like 10 years of your life, like I said, in a couple minutes. Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of the experience and what you picked up along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when I first wanted to go into it, I did a lot of like research. I talked to some people that had done it before, got in contact, like obviously a recruiter knew people, so I can actually talk to humans.
Yep.
And really understood like, hey, as a ranger, like it's an elite version of the infantry. So if you imagine like the regular army, it's kind of like a patrol cop, and the SWAT team is kind of like the Ranger Regiment, right? So it's very direct. Your job is specific. So you don't like drive around and like wait for people to shoot at you and like then you're like, oh, now we do stuff. It's like we specifically target things and specific pretty much entities, right? And those entities get targeted in certain ways depending on the different types of intel that you can receive. And then from there, it's it's a direct action mission, right? Like you directly go there, you do the things you need to do, you capture the people you want to capture, and wrap up the good old present that you got there, and then go back to the base.
Deliver it. That was the job.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you don't handle any of like interrogation stuff. That's not your job. Like ours was literally go there, do the thing, collect any of the things that we need to. And then when we get back, we hand that all off to analysts and people like that. And then from there, we go to the gym and we work out, we eat a little bit, we maybe play video games, we go to sleep, and we wake up again
do
and
it again.
So, and it was mostly at night. So playing as a nocturnal animal or a nocturnal hunter, right? Or predator, you can say. And that's essentially it. And it was just really nonstop work for the years that I was in. There were little stints where like, hey, we don't have anything for a week or something. But unless we were shut down for like an incident or something like that, it was nonstop. And it was a lot of fun. It ended up being like one of those things like you get worn out really quick. So our deployments were only about 120 days long.
Only?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a big army does like a year. So
but if you're going every night,
it feels like forever. So yeah, it's exactly it. Like it wears you out quite a bit, but you do rotations. So the next battalion comes and takes over for you, and then eventually the next one comes after them, and then you repeat that process as there's only 3 battalions. So it's very interesting, and like it's kind of nice because you don't have like, what is our job? It's very, very specific. Where the big army has so many different facets where they have to do, somewhat of the hearts and minds things. They have to do some form of patrolling, some kind of security force things. So they have a lot of different angles that they could take jobs through, where the Ranger Regiment's very specific. And it's really cool, like in the sense of like the brotherhood that comes afterwards, right? Like anybody that you meet that's a Ranger, whether you knew them or you didn't, or they were like an era, 10 years prior to you or anything like that, you're almost immediately friends. And it's like, all right, I can hang out with them, And it's a very similar type of personality and people. The Ranger Regiment doesn't take like non-athletes, right? Like everything's expected that you're like, we have a program, or we had back then a program called Ranger Athlete Warrior. So everybody was a long distance runner and everybody could pretty much carry their weight and plus more. So it was pretty amazing to see like that many fit dudes, and not just that, but like essentially A-type personalities that just wanted to go do things that were bad to bad people for their fucking country.
Look, man, I mean, I've heard, like I said, I consider myself well read. I've studied stuff, and part of this, what you're mentioning here is I'm listening to you talk, and I don't really know what I mean when I say this, but I'm just going to say it outright. Like, people listening to you, like, dude, this dude's just so mellow. Like, he's just so controlled. Like, he seems like he had everything so planned out, and it seems natural for you to be talking about it. But my experience, again, and just my outside experience, and this is mine, not everybody's like you, Jon. Right? Like, so not everybody had that same experience, right? The way you're talking about it is just very like matter of fact. And, this is just what we did. And I signed up for it. And I knew this is what I wanted to do and whatever. Mm-hmm. Were you caught off guard? I mean, was there anything that really surprised you, or did you handle it the same way you're handling this conversation right now?
Most things I handled it like this. I'm a pretty chill dude. Okay. I get hyper sometimes. I get excited. I get like, I jump around a lot, depending on what we're doing. But mostly I'm a pretty chill guy. Like handling life more neutral, if you want to call it that, or some people call it stoic. I think you handle things differently, but you also leave capacity for your brain to think. Where people that are extremely emotional or extremely emotional downward, in the negative land, they don't leave room for themselves to think and ponder and figure things out and solve issues and solve problems ahead of them, because their brains are focused on emotions. And not to say I don't have emotions, I definitely do, like we all do, but I really try to like be just more relaxed. There's no need to be too uptight and things like that.
Where did this come from? Because again, going back, like you hear stories, or you talk to people. You went into this at a young age. You'd made a decision. You did research. That was a whole other thing. Like now people, they don't do that background work to to set themselves up for, for success long term. You talked about that earlier. It's like I researched, I studied, I knew what I wanted to do. I got this contract. My ASVAB score was where it needed to be. Where did this mellowness, stoicism, control, and that's what I see. It's just you have a really, there's a high sense of awareness, of what you're saying, how you're saying it, when you're doing it, and how to do it the right way to get it across to people. And we're going to talk about that as we get into what you're doing now as a coach. But where did that come from?
I think it just came with experience, right? Like when you first get to like a unit, and anybody in the military that went to like the Marines or even the Army could tell you this. Like you get to a unit as a brand new guy, and there's a massive amount of stress put on you, right? Your team leaders are not the nicest humans, right? They like to fuck with you. They'll take you out back and you'll be doing push-ups until they get tired. That doesn't usually correlate. They don't get tired of not doing push-ups if they're not doing it. But what ended up happening is they kept me at such a high level of stress, right? As a brand new guy. And it's made by design, right? Like they want you to be stressed out because when you meet your enemy, if you ever meet your enemy, hopefully they don't stress you even that close.
Right.
So
and when they're doing that at whatever level, like
right.
I felt this or worse before.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's stress inoculation, right? And so over the years of that, I guess, and then getting out of the Army, like realizing the regular world is fairly easy, right? Like if you really think about it, like nobody's trying to kill you every day, unless they are. So, and then like small things that happen in your life, if they're that bad, change them, right? And if you can't change them, like what can you learn from them so that you can better yourself and grow, or eventually slowly lean the pendulum that way.
The needle,
so,
the meter, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
so that you can change eventually. And there certainly is a way, like all of us, like at least us that live in a free country like this, you could leave your job and go get a different one. It may be hard to do and definitely not as easy as it is spoken. But like if you really wanted to change something, you could. And so like I don't understand the reasoning people get like upset and frustrated with what they're doing. If they hate it that much,
fix it.
Leave. Yeah. Like do something different. Be like, but bye, Felicia, and like go do something else. And so like I went to college. I saw a lot of 18, 20-year-olds and stuff, and they're all like stressed out over a test. I'm like,
how tough was that for you to kind of get through?
It wasn't that bad actually, like because I understood their perspective, right? They literally don't know anything better. So when they'd come to me, or I'd be grouped in a like a group exercise or a group project or something, I'd be like, all right, guys, like, what do we want to do? And they're like, well, we don't know. I'm like, all right, check it out. I'm going to be a leader now, and we're going to do this.
That's easy for you, right?
And it fell right into place. But when you have, let's say, like a leader that has a little bit more calm to them, everybody calms down. If I was more rambunctious or like angry at the fact that they're kids and they don't know any better, like then they would feel that same emotion or similar towards me or towards the project. So it's just part of being a leader is to try and, keep everybody somewhat calm, but also teach them as you go, right? Bring them along, teach them by example, or teach them when you do it in some way, and like guide them with the process with them. So teaching and leadership, I think, go hand in hand very well. And the Army set me up pretty well because, man, I lived a pretty stressful 5 years to the point that I was like, you know what? Regular life, it's pretty easy. Like, I'll go to college, cool. I'll get this job, cool. And I haven't had a boss that stresses me out. No matter what boss I ever had, it was just like, what's up, man? Like
this is so interesting stuff. Because so many guys, right? They really struggle with their transition and coming out and not having the stress, and not knowing how to function. Quite frankly, out in life without that stress. And excuse me, you're handling this again just the same way I expected you to handle it. And I want to get into like how that transitions or transfers over into the people that you teach and what you're teaching them, how you're teaching them, who it is, all those things. But I wonder, like, do you find that, is that ever a struggle number one for you. Are you ever challenged by just being you for that matter, particularly in the world that we're in and the industry that you work in right now? Because so many things are built up on this, like what's the most outlandish thing you could possibly say or do to get attention, right? And that's and feeling like a connection or like almost a stress to have to do that to compete or keep up or any of, I mean, I think I'm trying to articulate that. Does that make sense?
I think I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So, well, for one, it's not difficult because I don't need to prove anything, right? I don't have that kind of, I guess I don't have that bone anymore, right? Like I was when I was a younger dude.
So that was in there at one point.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, you said compete, you like to compete, but there's also there's an intensity and an intent that happens with competing.
Like anything else, right? Even competition, it's solving a problem, right? Like, and like I said before, I like puzzles, I like solving problems.
Yep.
And like, even when I came out of the Army, like solving the problem of, hey, how do I do this civilian thing wasn't very hard because it's like, okay, like I just got to look at what I want to do next and get a job and maybe go to college, right? Because that's one of the reasons like one of the things the military offers you afterwards is being able to go to college. So things like that and educate myself. So stressing myself out or getting upset over it or trying to boast, right? Or do anything that's outlandish for attention. Like all of those things don't solve the problem. They mask it in some way. And the problem's still sitting there behind you, right? You're just standing in front of it trying to block it from everybody else. And there's, in my opinion, that's just going to fester, right? It's like mold in your house. Like you don't see that mold spot and go, well, I'll just spray paint over it. Like I'll just paint over the mold and then it'll be gone.
It's a really good analogy, man.
It's gonna continue to fester, right? So I rather just tackle it, right? Cut that piece of drywall out or the ceiling or whatever, replace it, do the right thing, and kind of like my grandfather told me, right, when I was younger, like if you do it right the first time, like you don't have to do it a second time, most likely. And sometimes you do, right? You fuck it up or whatever, but really, like you really do you only create your own problems over time, right? If people that are out there, like they like to, make up shenanigans or be, I'm this persona, bro. And like people eventually see through those kind of things. And also it takes a lot of effort and energy to do
doesn't
that.
It though?
It's just not worth it. Like I have energy for other things, like teaching. Like I want to put that energy into it instead of like putting my energy into like, oh man, I gotta put on my fucking mask, and like go out into public. It's just not worth it to me. And it's really, really easy to be yourself, and if yourself sucks, like, and you're just an asshole or a piece of shit, like, guess what? You have like the rest of your life to fix that, and like figure out what actually makes you happy, figure out what gives you purpose. And hey, sometimes it may take some trial and error and different things, but I'm a big fan of learning from mistakes, learning from faults. I tell people all the time, like, you may go to a competition and people look at it as winning and losing. And yeah, that's kind of the broad stroke of it, but winning is a way of analyzing where you are.
It's so important.
Right?
Yeah.
And then losing is even better way of analyzing
even more important.
Yeah, what you're missing out on so that you can win. Right? And people look at it and they get all emotional, they get all upset, and which is okay, but you got to shake that thing off at some point so you can grow. Right? Like none of us are or we shouldn't be stagnant, right? None of us are carrying, well, I will say 99% of people, because there may be one guy carrying like a Nokia. Like, you know what I mean? Like
flip phone, or something like that.
Yeah, none of us are using those per se, and or most of us aren't using those. And that, like, that tells you something. The phones are evolving, technology evolves, the world evolves. Like, you as a human must evolve. And people that lean on like previous experiences as their only way of going about life, they're living in the past. They haven't evolved. Because like, I know for a fact I am a much better shooter than I was when I was in the Army. And the Army did not teach me how to shoot like I am, right? Like I have learned over the years, trial and error, going to classes, talking to people, learning from people, taking and being a sponge.
The little old lady with the cigarette.
Oh man, she was just humble pie.
But it's a learning experience.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
So but at the time, I did not know that. But it did force me to learn. So eventually I understood that her purpose in my life was to guide me to my future endeavors to make me better. And it's really cool to see that. And it'd be cool to see her like now, if she's still alive and stuff, to like be like, thank you, right? Because like, without her putting that humble pie in my face, I may not have known what I didn't know or learned what I didn't know because of her. And little things like that, like over the course of the years, like every day, like I try to learn something new because this world has so many different facets.
Tons to offer, right?
So, and people that stay in their little like small pond and try to play the big fish in the small pond, like, you are the big fish in that small pond, but there's a bigger fish in a different pond. And he, like, if you ever meet him, he'll let you know, but you got to be there to pay attention to it. And unfortunately, ego keeps people in their ponds.
That right there is, that's rich. You just said a lot of things. And the digging down is really, what I see happening sort of in the industry and, large. And by the way, we're sitting smack dab in the middle of it this week, at SHOT Show. You just walk around the floor, it's palpable. Yeah. You can feel it. That ego piece or the I'm better than you, whatever it is that you're doing, whether that's, there's everything from targets to firearms, right? Yeah. And anything in between. There's some wild stuff down there on the, on the floors as you're going through the show. My point of that is what is the difference between being super successful and what's, and just being okay. And you probably learn these things early in life. I asked about the stoicism and like, where did that come from? And just like, hey man, I just kind of learned it along the way. It came from experience. But so many people go so far in this. And when I say far in this, maybe it's just their own skill level or the training that they're doing for, with their particular, whether it's pistol, rifle, whatever. And they miss so much because they can't get past the things that you just talked about. And so I think this is a really good transition or a place to transition into the people that you're coaching now. They're coming to you for a very specific reason, and I believe it's how you just presented what you presented. Because I have to imagine, and we have to talk about you tell the story, but I have to imagine that you're getting a very mixed bag at a lot of times of people that come to you like, hey, this dude seems like a great dude. He seems smart. He's got, whatever followers, and, other people have talked about him, and I see what he's doing, and it looks legit. But there are people at a much higher level that are coming to you as well. And it's not going to just be because John's a nice guy.
Right.
That shit has to produce at the end of the day. And it's not, this is the other thing, and the reason I asked you to open up on your background a little bit is because I've really never heard all, the details. That's why I wanted to hear that. But you don't lean on that either. Like, that isn't the basis for what you're teaching me. You just very clearly articulate, I really didn't teach me how to shoot very well. And but I'm out there teaching people how to shoot every day. There was these experiences along the way. I wonder if we could switch into, who is it that you're working with now? Who are these people? And the communities that they come from, and what is it that they want from you when they come to you?
Yeah. To back up just a little bit, right? The experience, right, from the military, like the reason I don't lean on it is because I look at it like a chapter. I'm past that chapter. There's no need to like flip back to like tell people like, this is how I did it because this is what happened this one time ever, So that's one thing, and the sample size of it is very small. But I think
it's very good perspective, man. Very good perspective.
So something just to like kind of give people that. But when it comes to the people that come to me, it's a huge variety of humans, right? Even this past weekend in St. George, I had a mix of cops, not cops, right? Former military dudes. I had an accountant. I had a couple dudes that were just students, like just all sorts of people. But what was similar between all of them is that they just wanted to get better, right? And one of the things that I like to do, or the way I present certain information in classes, is because like we're all different humans, right? All of us are different sizes, strengths, widths, heights, whatever. But how do you teach somebody to do something that they alone are the only ones that can tell if they're doing it right or wrong? And how do you teach them to see that?
How to feel it, maybe?
Right.
Is that
Well,
fair?
Kinda, right? So feeling is part of it because it's one of our senses, but
Okay.
like seeing, right? Your visual ability to see certain things is much higher, right? And faster than most things, right?
Okay.
Like if you feel something, you've most likely looked at it already. Or if you feel something, you'll look at it afterwards and receive the data from that and think about where your eyes are in relation to your brain. It's
Got
a
it.
little bit more
Yep.
easier to transfer information that way too. But when you look at the students, like because of the vast variety of them, options are needed, right? Like there's certain, I would say, options that you can't surpass, right? There's certain things that you may have to do because of the certain item that you're holding or tool that you're using. And then there's certain things that are based on your hand size, how your arms are, how your head is positioned, what you see, right? Because some people have different vision.
Yeah, right. That's a huge deal.
And there's a lot of different things that go into it. So how do you teach somebody like Curris and then somebody that's, a five foot.
But me,
you know,
I mean, I suck.
Well, like
But it's well, I think what I hear you saying is it's
Yeah.
like there's not a one size fits all to all
absolutely
of this.
not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And those that try to peddle that, like, we see you. Like, we know you're doing what you're doing. And unfortunately, the consumer doesn't know yet. And once they get educated in that, once again, going back to like education being like the key to spotting good, bad, ugly, whatever, it is like one of the things that you start to key in on as you become more educated
Right.
or maturing in what you're doing. So just like anything else, you look at even fitness, right? Like, the guy that's actually like working hard to get better, even though he's overweight or
Yes.
he's got extra pounds on him.
Yes.
But he's working his ass off.
Yes.
Right. And then you see the dude that just like looks like he's like glamour muscles, fucking, model for
Yep.
bathing suits. And you're like, he doesn't work very hard. Like, he's probably just maintaining, or maybe half of that is fucking fake. So there is a certain persona that people give off with that kind of stuff, and you could see it. But how do you make everybody better, no matter what part of the spectrum they're on?
That is a great fucking question.
Yeah, and that's with options, right? With options that you give them, and you teach them to diagnose themselves, right? And if you could teach them to diagnose themselves, which I tell people all the time, I'm like, it's a terrible business model because then they like never come back.
I disagree with that because what they find out is like you provided them so much value.
Hopefully,
There's so much quality or there's value and depth in that they're indebted almost to you forever, and they will come back.
That would be the hope.
And they tell the story to other people like this is how this person helped me, and they feel compelled to do it. And this is, compare and contrast against the health and fitness side of things.
Absolutely.
Like you can play everything close to the chest if you want and pretend that you are the solution and withhold or gatekeep, if you will, the information if you like. But the bottom line is none of it is actually proprietary. And what you're doing is it's not new. Like, it's just that you found a way to connect with this person and give them the tools to help themselves.
Yeah.
And when they recognize that you've given them that gift, there is a whole nother level of learning that can happen after that because now they're open to it.
Yeah.
And there's they will, I guess openness maybe is the term, but they're ready to now receive the information and the data for that matter that you're giving to them because you put it in a way or in a format that they can understand.
Yeah.
And they can adjust to. And now there's ownership in it. And there's this buy-in to it. And so anything you tell them from that point, like, you've earned and gained their trust. And it's only in an effort, again, with going back to intentions, to help them get better.
Yeah, that's it.
And if I can realize this, I mean, you got to give the human credit for this, But that isn't how we see a lot of this training, a lot of these things happening.
Nah.
So when they get to a guy like you, and the team that you're working with, or the people that you hang out with, cool people hang out with other fucking cool people. That's what I've learned, right? They're like, oh, they're just like, oh, now I get it. And they stop, like they recognize now when they see something that's fake or, not These words get used a lot, but it's just not authentic. It's not genuine. There's a weird sort of intention behind it. They recognize it. And they're like, that doesn't feel right to me.
Exactly.
We see you, as you said.
Exactly, we see you. But it's also like something too. They absolutes are very rare, right? When it comes to something that has to do with us
as an individual,
like individually doing something. And what you'll find is people that speak in a lot of absolutes are people that only know that way. And, you know, I only have, or I can only say that because of all the times that I've gone to a class and dudes are like, yeah, you got to do it like this. And I'm like, dude, I could do it with my pinky if I really wanted. And I could probably be pretty accurate. Like, who knows? But really, like, it's the absolute of you have to, or this is the only way, or any of that kind of stuff. Those should be pretty red flags for most students per se. Like when it comes to like learning, because there isn't only one way, and there isn't only like you have to's, and like I could do whatever I want, right? Like I live in a somewhat free country, right? I could do whatever I want,
as they say.
Yeah, it's like free-ish. So land of the free-ish.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we all live there. I live in California, you live in Florida. I feel like
never mind.
I feel like we're the same, but not the same.
But yeah, the intention behind it is like, you know, what is that teacher trying to get?
You're right.
You know, and like if students can sniff out that this guy's just in it for money or in it for the fame or doing it intentionally because he wants more attention in whatever way.
Yeah.
Like eventually that comes out. And in my opinion, like I don't get involved in it in the sense of like, hey, fuck this dude.
You're not feeding in.
No,
right?
Because then you're just giving them the attention they want. They want somebody to talk about them, repost that stupid picture or that video.
Drives the algorithm.
Yeah, exactly. So like I just ignore it and just do what I know is the right thing to do. And that's to give the students that what they want, which is to get better. And that's why they come to classes. And I tell people all the time, like when they get to the class, like think of it like a classroom. Like this is what it is. We're learning. I'm a teacher and I'm trying to teach you things. And if you try to make it a competition between you and the guy next to you, like you're missing out on information that you can be gaining, right? Like you're shooting super accurate holes, man, but you can go faster, right? Like who cares if you mess one up? Who cares if you mess a bunch up?
So some people need to hear this. Yes. Yeah.
And learn from it.
Right.
Learn from it. And if you don't know how to diagnose or understand what you're doing wrong so that you can better yourself, that's okay. Right. But as you gain, as you go to hopefully more better teachers out there, right, or go to classes that will help you understand what you're doing wrong, you just become a better and better person, right? Better shooter, everything. So people that don't do that and they just like, you know, go to the class and ballistically masturbate, compete with the guy next to them, and they're like, all right, I'm awesome. They go to lunch and they're like, yeah.
Talk about how awesome they are.
Yeah, like I'm so warmed up right now. I hope a motherfucker would, you know, like, and you're like, dude, awesome. I'd be there like, well, it's gonna get loud, like you know, like I'm. I just think people need to put away their egos, especially in a classroom setting, right? Like, just let it be, right? Like, let the gun do what it's gonna do. Learn from what it's gonna do, and as you start seeing that, you could start gaining information and more information about yourself. Because who cares what, you know, the guy next to you is doing? He's not you. He cares very little about your shooting. He cares about his shooting as much as you're caring about your shooting. So don't worry about what he's thinking, right? Think about what you're doing so that you can get better. And I think people miss out on that factor because they got to be the bestest, or, you know, have the best gun or have the best, I don't know, iPro, whatever. You know, and they want to be the coolest person there. But I don't know about you, but I don't go to class to be cool. I go to class to learn. That's why I pay somebody my money that I work for and then expect them to give us the information that I can now apply in different ways and figure out what works for me.
It was interesting. That's exactly how I approach class. Or, you know, if I'm going to make the investment of time, finance, energy, you know, all of those things, the prepare, you know, having to prepare to go, the travel, all that kind of stuff. It's just thing I run, you know, we all have our circles, and you see the same type of people. And, I'm one way when I'm at work or on the podcast or whatever else, but people are like, man, you okay? When I'm at class. And I'm like, no, man, I'm fucking great. Like, yeah, okay, I just want to make sure, because I'm quiet and I'm just trying to take it all in. I'm trying to absorb every ounce of value that I could possibly get. And I'm also, this is what I get about you too. And so I have a question to follow this up is, what I do is I examine the characters that I'm around. Like it's not like, I don't care where you're putting the bullets on, or the rounds on paper or whatever, steel, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you as a human and kind of trying to understand how you're learning and how you learned this, or how you performed, how you took the information that instructor just gave you and you applied it, because that's a bit of that puzzle. Like maybe I could learn from this, and it wasn't what was said, it was how it was applied. And there's this, self-examination that's going on at the same time. Yeah, and it can get that can be exhausting. And for somebody that doesn't know, right, like getting into that environment, they can be overwhelmed very quickly by all the effort information that's coming in. And as an instructor, that's a challenge, because if your goal is to really do what you've said, which is really provide that kind of value to everybody, you really have to have a really good read on what's going on in that classroom. And this isn't just about guys like me. I'm just a dude, right? And I don't carry a gun for a living. I don't get paid for that. I'm just there to enjoy the class and learn some things. But you're working with people that they do get paid to carry a gun for a living, and they go into some really high stress environments, and they have to perform a task very, very specifically with a very little error, margin for error and all those kind of things. And so they may be thinking about it a little bit differently. And I, as the regular dude, might be out on the range with somebody who comes from that other background. So the question I think in this is, how do you get to, as an instructor, and this is for all the instructors out there, but also all the students that walk into classes, how do you do that well? Like, where does it start? Is there a formula for this, for being successful in making sure that you are giving that equal value? And again, can you do that 100% for 100% of the people in there? No, there's a give and take, I'm sure.
Right.
But how do you do that, man? Because I'm sure you get some knuckleheads or some people that are thick-headed, or you get people that are all into the spectrum. Like, what do you do?
So it's a mixture, right? So part of it is giving them context, right? Like, think about the context that you're applying things, right? That's a big, big important one. Like, shooting is just shooting, right? Like, if you look at like anywhere, like whether I am shooting at 2-legged critters or 4-legged critters, like shooting.
The fundamentals are the same. Right. Skills are the same.
The gun does the same exact thing, right? The difference is the context that you put it into, right? Like, how you're going to apply those skills is what's going to change. Now, in a class setting with 15 different dudes that all feel differently, see differently, act differently, and realistically just shoot different too, going through it, like there's a couple different things, right? You have to be, one, you have to give a shit, right? You have to care enough to like go through and really dig deep and watch and observe what you specifically are looking for in a specific exercise. Now, and that's one thing to kind of throw out there too. I don't call like shooting drills, like drills aren't what I do in class. Like, we do exercises. We exercise vision. We exercise like what your fundamentals are specifically doing at that point, or what to focus on in specific fundamentals, or like the process to shooting is what I call it. But but making sure that they're focused on those different things, and then knowing what they should be looking for and what it looks like when it's wrong. So I purposely, and this may sound weird because some of you guys never been to class, but I purposely have them mess up their grip, right? And like, just see what your sighting system's telling you when your grip is bad. Because if you don't know like what it looks like when it's good and what it looks like when it's bad, like
there's no in between.
How do you know, right? Like, how do you know that you had a bad grip? So and we do that with various things, but that alone starts giving people like, well, one, a more analytical look at what they're doing versus just put hole in paper, and or put bullet on steel, make the tingy ting. But
the lizard brain.
Yeah, exactly. Stay in more of a human brain.
Yeah.
So when looking at that, like, if you can show them what to look for, what to focus on, and then be looking out for those specific things when you're going through it. And it's like if they start veering off into the side and they're focusing on something different, it's like pause. Just do what we're doing now. I promise we'll get there. And then you guide them, right? As a teacher, you're supposed to teach them things and then guide them in the process, right? Like a me do, we do, you do.
Yep.
Right? And if you can do that in a specific way, which I use something called skill stacking to start adding, different things in motion, right? Just like you would in the classroom when you're learning like algebra. And then from there, it's literally the same process. As humans, we learn relatively the same. But if you can only speak to one type of person, right? Like the bro, right? Like you can only talk to him, whatever amount of percentage of the rest of the class is, they're not going to hear it.
Right.
They're not going to understand it. It's not going to be concise and clear enough for them to digest and understand. So what you want to do, or what I try to do, is with everything that we isolate or we go through or we structure in the class, every skill that we start to stack, I try to show it in a way that they get to visually see it, physically see it, physically do it, and I auditorily explain it. So now all these different learning modalities that we have as humans get conquered in the way that people learn. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, right, all of us as humans that learn this way start capturing that. And so I can teach literally everybody in one example because I conquer all the ways that we learn. Then as you grow, as you start seeing them do their things, you can start to isolate certain problems that they may be having. And if you never take a look at each individual student and you never actually give a shit, you'll never see that. And you'll never be able to help everybody in one class. The other thing is keeping the class not so big that you're doing it for money.
Right.
Right? There's guys that are out there that have, 30-man freaking lines. I'm like, that is literally double the amount of people I allow in class. I have a capacity. And the reason for that is so that I can give everybody my attention to a certain amount and not essentially not give them the value for what they're paying for, right? Because the money's cool and stuff, but like, I mean paying for in time, right? Like,
yep,
we can't get that shit back.
Nope.
Like, it's gone. Once you use it, right? Like, everybody's using it right now, watching this or listening to this. Like, at that point, it's gone, girl. Like, it's not coming back. You can't refund it. We can't give it back to you. I can't be like, all right, bud, we'll just rewind you another 4 hours and you'll be fine. Like, it's gone. So we have to use it wisely. And the same thing I tell people, it's like I try to thank them for their time because, like, you're going to give me 16 hours to 20 hours of your time for a normal class on a weekend that you could be doing other things or enjoying yourself differently. I want to give you the value for it. And that's usually why we don't have like lunch breaks and we don't take long breaks for ammo. It's like jam mags, take a bite of food, let's go, right? Make sure you drink water. And at that point, it's a continuous course. So you don't get essentially 4 hours of training and 4 hours of breaks, lunch, and, lollygagging. You get, I would say, almost a full 7 hours because the last hour is broken up as your hours or your minutes loading ammo, taking bites of food, and then getting back on the line to get working or putting up targets and stuff. Right. So that's my goal at least, and I try to strive for that. And the op tempo or the tempo of the class and the time management that I have to do to just conquer that is pretty hard and it's a lot of work. And that's why I sleep really well after class. Like,
it's not just something you show up and do, man.
No, it's something you pre-plan, you plan well, and then you really give them your all. And if you're not passionate about it, cool, man. Just don't do that. Go find something you're passionate about. Not everybody's meant to be a teacher. There may be dudes that are phenomenal shooters out there, but they may not be able to like tell you or explain or show you or really be clear enough to understand so that they can have you do the same thing or learn from their experiences or learn from their understanding of it, and also what other options are available for them. Something I see a lot is people don't go train anymore, right? Instructors, right?
That's huge.
Right. A lot of them sit and they're like, all right, I've made it. I'm good.
Right.
I will continue putting on or giving out what I know. And some know a lot, but there's evolution, as we spoke about earlier. Like, you don't have the same old phone you have in your pocket. We've evolved.
The
So
Nokia.
yeah. So like at that point, we gotta continue evolving with the iPhones of our brains and skill and adaptations to the industry or the way that we shoot, right? As humans get better at things, we start learning better things, right? We thought like the fastest man was like back in, what was it, the 30s, I think
Right.
it was.
Yeah.
Like, and he beat a fucking record and he was just the fastest dude ever. Pfft, that's not even close to a record anymore at this point, right? People are so much faster because we just learned how to run better technology, better adaptations, right? Fitness and health and the way they take care of themselves. So it's the same thing with shooting.
Oh, it's very relatable, man. I mean, I'm listening to you, and the first thing you said was there's giving a shit.
Yeah.
Like, you have to give a shit. And part of the giving a shit is knowing who's in front of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's important for them and making some level of a connection, whether that's, like a personal, emotional, but you have to get goals aligned. Like, you have to understand who you're teaching, why they're here, so that you can provide those examples, and the learning model that you're talking about resonates with them, and they get something out of it at the end of the day. Otherwise, you can talk all day long about providing value, but if saying and actually doing that are two very different things.
Mm-hmm.
And you can look, again, going back to like the fitness, relatable piece. I hear people, and I've been doing this for 25 years. I mean, I hear people saying like, "Oh, we do this, and this is what you're going to get when you come to our gym, and our trainers are awesome," because you're talking a great game, but you're not actually delivering that. And a lot of it has to do with what you came back to in the first place, which is giving a shit. And it's not about giving a shit about yourself, right? And being like the person on stage with the mic and the headset, if you're in the front of the crowd or whatever, or the TED Talker or whatever else. It's like, hey, listen, like I'm here to deliver and transfer some knowledge, however you want to look at it. Mm-hmm. It's not about me, it's about you. So I want to help you. Tell me how I can do that versus let me tell you how I'm going to do that for you today. Right. But that's not what we're seeing, man. But I do think when I say that, like, there are a lot of great fucking instructors out there. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I'm sitting in front of one, and that's, that was the impetus of this whole thing. Is like, I want to hear this stuff from you, because we hear and we see the flashy video or the thing, and the collective we, and we're looking at there and go, oh, that seems right. That seems right. But you talked about the evolution of this, right? And when we do that, we learn things. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people in different camps that are like, they're bashing that. Like, when somebody, all of a sudden, this is very controversial. Like, that if you've said this, like, this goes against everything we know, or everything we've trained, or everything we've been taught to know, or whatever the case is. And
emotions.
Yeah, man. Versus like, just listen to what that fucking guy is saying for a second, on the off chance that he might know what the fuck he's talking about. Or stop thinking that what he's doing is standing up there and grandstanding about it. And it's, yes, there may be a little bit of like, I am trying to like get this post out and get some attention, but at the same time, it's really like, hey, I learned this thing today, or we should be questioning this. Right. And you're not a fucking evil son of a bitch for questioning what may or may not have been like the norm for so long. And that's what drives growth. Right. And so you're talking about doing this as an individual, right? And when you were out there as an instructor or as a participant, say in the classroom, or in this case on the range or whatever, I see so much happening on the interwebs, mm-hmm. That drives me nuts. I just go like, okay, the guy said something that's a little bit different than what we've been told. Is there any value in this? I wonder if you're looking out there, if you spend much time doing that. I mean, you spend a lot of time teaching or whatever, that just drives you fucking absolutely bananas.
Well, nothing really drives me bananas. It's like, well, that's fucking wrong.
Here comes the stoic Jon. Yeah, I get that, but come on, man.
But it really doesn't, because the way I look at it is, if somebody wants to say whatever they want to say, like, more power to you, bud. Right? You do you. But the people, once again, that really want good information are going to go seek it.
Right.
Right. And this is probably why I'm not more popular than I could be or more known as I could be, because there's no need to be like over the top or say something to get attention and stuff like that. But those that know the right thing will know the right thing. It's the same thing. Similar to what we were talking about before we started. Like, if you meet somebody and you're like, wow, this person's a big piece of shit, like, you're going to be like, all right, not hanging out with them ever again, right? But when you meet somebody and you're like, damn, that's a good person, like, all you want to do is hang out with them. It's contagious, and you're like, I want to be around that person more, right? And it's not like a girlfriend boyfriend thing, because that's like a different feeling, but it's like I want to know, the either the drive or why they're so passionate,
Yes.
or why they like what they like, or what is it that what's putting them in that place? What's making them such a good person? And can I be a better person because of that too? And you can't like be smarter if you only hang out with idiots, right? You have to be smarter by being the idiot, essentially, and hanging out with all the smarter people, right? And you gain more knowledge that way, and you ask questions, you question the things they say, not in a way of like, but that's fucking wrong. No, like question them in like, why is that?
The
like,
why, yes.
Yeah, like explain.
Fair question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people get defensive about that stuff, and I think it's unnecessary to get defensive if somebody's just asking you out of the curiosity of their heart.
Yep.
And they're like, well, like, I just don't understand, man. Like, why? And if you can explain it and you can go in more in depth with it, and you can really like, or that person could sit there and listen to it.
Yep.
And yeah, maybe they have a great point. But after that, it's time to verify too, right? Like, I can listen to what you said, but like, let me do some research. Once again, like go check it out. Like, the internet is a massive amount of information. Yeah. Like, so much information out there, and people don't utilize it. Exactly. Yeah. Most of the time. And like, just like anything else, like you can verify any science that's out there. You can verify almost anything anybody says. And it's worth going and taking a look and seeing, oh shit, man, he's talking about this. Is that really a thing? Well, instead of just being like, he's a god, I trust him, just, hey, go check it out. And I think if people did that more, instead of just like, like, hey, blah blah said this, so that's why I'm saying this, and it's you're now third personing the process. It's different. But if somebody says something like, about your eyes, right? Like, and they're talking about how the eyes work. Well, cool. Like, that's cool information. I wonder if that's true
for everybody. Yeah.
Check it, and go check it out. And you can literally type it in and find out more about the eyes. So it's just people don't put in the time, and it's the same thing with like equipment. Like, in this industry, a lot of people ask about equipment. Like, what is this? What should I do this? Should I get this? Should I get that? And usually it's like, like you're asking about, red apple versus like a gala apple,
Gotcha,
like,
I got you, yeah.
It's like reddish,
really? Yeah.
And it's like, man, that doesn't really matter. It's like, what do you like? And then sometimes it's just like, what are you doing with it, right? Like, what that matters too. Mm-hmm. But if these people went out and like seeked training or seek time using the equipment, they would find what works for them, right? With experience, or with time behind guns, or going to class and trying, hey, can I try that thing?
Right.
Can I try that?
Right.
People are super, super nice in classes.
1,000%. You get exposed to all kinds of cool shit.
And it's like, hey, man, can I shoot your gun? Hell yeah, dude. Yeah. Like, here's a mag, here's another mag. And they're like all for it. And so try it. But you would have never known unless you went to the class. So like, it takes time to go out and experience things. And it does sometimes take a financial thing, or it takes a little bit more away from your family. Mm-hmm. But what are your goals? What are your priorities? And what do you want to get out of it? And if you can satisfy those in some way or fashion, like, you can literally learn what you want to know in person sometimes just by you experiencing certain things. And once you do, it's like, all right, cool. Now I know what to buy.
Right.
Now I know what myself for my application needs.
Yeah, the context of everything changes at that point. Right? Yeah. So any of that short video you see or whatever, that sort of like attention-seeking post that you think is attention seeking, okay, well, there's a little bit of playing the game if that's how you get your message out there. But
Right.
what's really the underbelly of this, and how can I extract value from this?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the going out and training and taking classes and having a why, like an impetus for like, why am I doing this? Not because this guy's a god, but I generally want to learn, or there's this particular skill or whatever, and I've chosen this. It's accessible to me. Like I can afford this. It's an hour from me rather than a plane flight and all that kind of stuff. I wonder about you, because you know, one of the things you mentioned is the continual learning process. And I know you to be a guy that just continually trains. So what are you excited about, man? Like where are you going to get your own training and kind of scratch that itch, also learn new things? Like what's on the agenda maybe for 2023?
So for me, the last couple of years have been really heavy in precision rifle. And it's not because I want to teach that. It's because I actually like thoroughly enjoy it. Like shooting things super far away and being able to hit, like it's thoroughly enjoying, right? And one of the things I want to do to apply it is for more backcountry hunting or something like that I want to do.
Okay, so that's secondary.
Yeah, that's a secondary thing. But when I wanted to go learn, right, all I did was take the advice of a couple of my sniper buddies and went literally across the country to Washington from Florida and the state of Washington, and took a class from like modern day sniper.
Okay.
And Kalen, the amount of podcasts, articles, videos that he puts out, things like that I got out of what he was putting out was that dude, I want to train with him because of how the vetting process that I took to kind of find out.
You're extracting a ton of value from him, right? And so it's like,
and just like, what's he talking about? And then looking it up or talking to somebody that I know has a lot of experience shooting far away. And then like understanding that this guy understands what he's doing. I like the way that he presents information. And man, when I met Kalen, I was like, damn it, this guy's awesome. Like, this is the shit. Like, this is exactly what I was looking for.
Your expectation.
I was super happy with it, and spending 4 days with him, kind of learning in a class that I didn't contact him prior and be like, hey, bro, do you know who I am? Like, none of that bullshit. I literally paid for the class, flew over there. Yeah, spent like, I don't know, $4 or $5 grand, like doing the class.
On the trip, yep.
Yeah, because the flight, the hotel, the rental car.
Shit's real.
Oh, yeah. And what I found is that I got exactly what I wanted out of it. Money well spent, time well spent, and like I made a whole new friend out of it, right? Once Kalen started he's like, I know you from somewhere, and it literally clicked, and then it became like two peas in a pod. So if I can make more good friends too, right? Because good people recognize good people.
Yeah, we talked about that. Yeah.
And it dives right back into it. And guess what? Then I met his assistant or his other instructor, Phil. We became friends, and we don't even have similar backgrounds. Mm-hmm. Like they're Marine guys or Marine Corps snipers, scout snipers, sorry. And if you say it wrong, and then I come from the Army side as an assaulter. Like I didn't do any sniper stuff. So it was really cool to like, man, I like the way these guys present information. They dig deep into it. They tell you the whys. They explain what the science is behind it sometimes, or maybe even the physics behind it. And it is magically like just a huge learning environment. I love it. So that's what I look for, right? I look for teachers that are going to teach me. And I look specific because I want to know certain things or I want to learn certain things. Some classes I get to go to are, I get an invite because they want me to analyze and give them feedback on the class.
That's awesome.
And I love doing those.
Yeah, that's awesome. The coaches are reaching out to other coaches like,
absolutely.
Hey man, come to my thing. Show me.
Tell me if I suck.
Yeah, or right? Just give me some feedback. What could I be doing better?
And most of the time I write like a good, either bullet points or almost like a full report on things that I didn't like that I thought were incorrectly taught, or maybe not incorrect, but maybe there's another way that you could teach it too. Sure. And it may hit other students and help them develop their teaching style or what they're doing. And also just looking at the class in totality from a teacher's perspective and a student's perspective is kind of cool. But yeah, I take about 12 to 18 classes a year. I travel around and do it. And what I find is that Every single class I go to, there's something little I'll pick up, or maybe even something big. Recently I changed the way I grip a handgun. Like, I've been shooting a handgun since I was 18, and like what is that, 20 or 15 years. So at this point, like, you would think I knew how to hold a handgun, but guess what? Shit evolves, right? But if you never try something new, you never know if it's going to work better for you. So just simple things like that. I think if people dove more deeply into it and actually cared about, like, either on the teacher side, cared about what they were doing and teaching and be passionate about what it is and give a shit. And then on the student side, if you're going to a class, putting in your time to the class, right? Don't sit there on your phone. Take notes, copious notes, right? Record what you can, like demonstrations and things like that. Mm-hmm. Like, most teachers will let you record demonstrations for yourself. Right. And anything that could help you learn whichever way that you learn the best. I had a guy who learns really well auditorily, brought a recorder and recorded me, like verbally recorded.
So he could listen back.
So he can listen back and understand what it was. And then when people ask questions, like, he recorded that so that he can understand and learn from them. So, and one of the cool parts is, every class I get there, I know I don't know everything. And I always encourage people to chime in, right? Give their perspectives, give whatever their ideas are to certain things. And, hey, I learned it this way. That's pretty cool. I like that. Or, here's some faults with that way. Let's try something else, right? Or, hey, try it that way and try this way and see which one works better. Discover what works. And that's what a classroom's for, but it's not to compete against each other, right? So it's interesting.
I think what I heard you say there is, like, you're basically like 1.5 classes a month that you're taking as an instructor to better yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you said, 12 to 18 a year is way more than most people do. And you're spending a lot of time in your life, this is your business, right? Coaching or teaching, and we're working with other people and they're coaching and they're teaching. Mm-hmm. That means you're constantly trying to master your craft. And you've related this a couple of times to fitness, and I appreciate that, because I think it's very much the same. There's principles of individuality. There's principles of specificity. There's principles of progressive overload or specific adaptations to imposed demands. And that being, like, why am I going to try to download all of this software onto somebody that has they don't have the capacity to handle any of these things? Yep. And you recognizing, like, this is what I really want to explore and the reasons why I want to explore it, and I really enjoy this. You have that drive to do it. And there's this practical application that I have, go back to the PRS stuff. And I love doing this, and I've put a lot of time and energy into kind of learning about it. I'm going to fly across the country. I'm going to invest. But there's also this other application that I have. Like, if I want to go out and hunt or whatever, I can do that. I don't think that a lot of people are putting that kind of effort or thinking into their training program. It's like, hey, I have job, I have family, I have life, and I'm trying to cram this particular course in because it looks cool or somebody said something about it or whatever else. I think if we just pulled back a little bit as students, you being one of those, and we approached our training much the same as it's the way you've described it, the we see yous and those kind of people, they would go away. They would go away. And so I wonder, like, so we're just sort of wrapping up here and coming to a close. I wonder what there's two pieces of like value that I would love to extract from you, and you've given so much of it so far. But if you were talking to a shooter, like the guy that comes to your class doesn't really know what he's getting himself into, but just kind of shows up, right?
I'm here. Yeah. Show me the way.
Yeah. Show me the way. Like, this is the God. Like, you mentioned that and being careful about that. But and then also the other people that are coming to you, because you're training very, very skilled, very, very specific people work in law enforcement, maybe military, not just here in the United States, but like internationally. What would you encourage them to kind of think about as they approach maybe their next training opportunity, whatever that is?
Okay. So first thing is, whatever you go to learn, right? Try to soak it in and make sure you really look at what you're doing bad, right? Like, what is the worst things you're doing in certain exercises, things like that. So
Being
that
self-critical.
absolutely. But that way you have literally training points to go practice. And then when you go practice, like, don't just shoot once a month. And I'm not saying like live fire once a month is fine for most people, but you must dry fire then the other 29, 30 days, right? Like, you need to take the time, because most people are like, well, I can only get to the range once a month or twice a month.
Okay. Yeah.
That's cool.
That's a reality.
Yeah. And that's absolutely true. Like, I get it. Life is a thing, but you could also carve out 10 minutes and actually do a little bit of dry practice and technically get the same training in your brain, right? That really focuses on what you're trying to learn or what you're trying to get better at. And then when you do get to the range, go there with a plan. Don't just show up to the gym without a fucking plan, because then you're just like, well, I don't, and they're lost, right? Same thing with the range. If you show up with a specific plan, like, okay, I took a class, I learned that I sucked at all these things, right? I practiced all these things better in dry practice. Now I'm at the range and I'm going to see how I perform on these things again. And now I'm seeing either progression in my training, like I'm doing well and I've been doing the right thing this month, or there's a degradation and I'm like, what the hell did I do wrong? I must focus on different things, or maybe I need more help, right? And now I can seek more specific training.
Self-assessment.
Exactly. And people don't do that. They go to the range, they're like, yeah, it was fucking awesome. And then they go home and they do life, and then they go back to the range and they expect to shoot well, and then they shoot like trash, and then like, dang it, why do I suck? And then they go back to another class.
Then they go to Instagram and they search for the answer to their problem or whatever, yeah.
And the same cycle perpetuates itself. So what we want to do is like go there with a plan. Go planned out, focus on what you're trying to learn, right? Don't waste that money, right? Don't waste that time, right? And end up like, okay, that was a great class, but I don't remember shit, right? Like, it's all lost on me now. Or I can't remember because I was so excited, right? Emotions came into it. And and I got so excited that like my brain froze out all the important stuff.
Yeah.
So, but go with a plan. Go with a plan and make sure you prepare yourself for it. Now, I have like a 4-part series of YouTube videos on YouTube for free that people can watch on like what I do as a student in classes. And each video is based off of like either one specific class or preparation for classes or note-taking in classes and things like that. And
so practical, dude. It's awesome.
Way too practical because it's not popular enough. And
I'm sure it's not the one that has 10 trillion views.
No, not even close. Because like, for one, there are no boobs in it, and then 2,
is there any shooting in any of it?
I'm not blowing anything up.
Yeah, nothing's exploding.
So it's not sexy, and so there's no entertainment value out of it. But the educational value, I think, is so much higher in those videos than the majority of all the ones that other ones that I've made, just to help people out as students. Just like, what do I do in this class? What do I go to? How do I prepare for a class? And some people know because they've been doing it for years and they have their own way. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Sweet. You may get little nuggets out of that one. But those of you that haven't taken one, man, this may help you. This may even help you if you're taking a class on something else and you don't know, and you can apply the same concepts over.
Yep.
And use it as a template. So it may actually be something really useful. And that's another thing I think people need to do too. So mainly it's proper planning. What
do they say? They say
proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Oh my God. Who said that? Was it Raul, Eli? Was it Raul up in Half Moon Bay? He said the exact same thing, man. Yeah.
That's a common saying.
Yeah. In nearly 100% of the time. Like, because you're going to get something from it. And again, this is so like, it sounds, people listening, it's like, oh man, okay, well, I just want to go out and fucking put rounds down range. But what the value that you're providing here and what I'm extracting from this is just how to think about your training maybe a little bit differently before you enter into it. And the world of, shooting and firearms training and the experience that you have, it's all evolving and it's going to continue to evolve. And I think that's what people want. They want to evolve their own stuff too. And they're excited about it. Like, they're like, hey, I get to go do this, or I get to try this new thing. But there's so many roadblocks that get in the way. You've mentioned, like, I can only get to the range once a month. So what am I doing otherwise? Or, and they're searching for the answer in a new piece of equipment or gear, or, It's the gun. It's the, it's the optic. Like
You're the biggest variable.
1,000% doesn't care if you have an optic or you don't have an optic. Yeah, like it's you suck, or
it's you, boo boo.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, exactly.
That's all you got to work on.
Yeah, so that's not a popular, sexy, doesn't have boobs, and nothing's exploding right in that message. And again, that's why I was excited to kind of sit down with you today, because I knew I would get that from you, but like in the way that you presented it, I think people can, I don't care who you are, what you're trying to get better at, you can walk away. And you mentioned something which may sound a little odd to people. When you approach things in the way that you've articulated it, and you said it just makes you a better human. Mm-hmm. If people focused on that shit, rather than the ballistic masturbation, as you put it out there, where would we be, right? And how would we be perceived? I mean, certainly as a community, and I think everybody contributes to that at some level, wherever you're coming into it, whatever you're posting on Instagram, whatever you're doing on a podcast, whatever you're doing in a classroom or on a range or whatever else. And I think if people just took a step back and stopped trying to make it so exciting all the time and put egos aside and all that stuff, like you're doing, I think you're a great fucking example, dude.
Well,
for what I would like to see the industry,
it'd be cool
as a whole move to. Yeah.
It'd be cool to see it, but it's hard.
It is.
Ego creeps in. One of my favorite, like one of my buddies and somebody I've also take classes from, Chuck Pressburg, he says this quote: "Ego's not your amigo."
Ego's not your amigo.
And like the second he said it in class, I was like,
it's corny as shit.
That's awesome.
It sits in there, right?
It is, but it's true. Yeah. He's not your friend. Whomever your ego is not your man. That's not your friend. He's not there for you. He's in it for himself. And like, as we know, anybody in it for themselves, like usually just doesn't usually end up being a good person.
It takes a lot of energy, man.
Yeah. Like, like somebody that like walks by a napkin on the floor and picks it up and puts it in a trash can says so much about their character. Somebody that walks the grocery cart.
Oh, that's my favorite one.
Back to the return thing. That says so much about your character. Like, I get it. Some people are in rushes and they got to put it, it's a side or whatever. Don't leave it in the dang thing where people can't park or where it rolls into somebody's car, right? Those things kind of say things about people's character. And, man, I think it's Rob Trevino that says it. And he's a former CAG guy. And I took a leadership course from him, not even a shooting class. It was a leadership course that I was invited to. And he said something that was pretty profound that makes me think quite often. It's like doing the hard right over the easy wrong is usually the right way to go about it, right? Like if you have two choices and you're like, man, I could either walk by that and just kick it aside, like that napkin, not pick it up, like that's the easy answer, and it's probably the wrong answer. But I could just pick it up, which makes me bend over, and my fucking glutes are sore from lunges the other day. I don't want to bend over.
Right.
And I still fucking do it to pick it up and put it in the trash can. That's the hard right. And that's the right thing to do so nobody slips on it or it doesn't get caught in like, I don't know, anything else or whatever. But everybody knows the right and wrong to do.
I believe that.
But people try to ignore it.
They make a different choice.
Yeah, and their egos usually do it for them.
I mean, that's where we are. I mean, that's what we're seeing every day. And I think that's what a lot of people are frustrated with, and innately they know exactly what they realize what you just articulated there. Man, I mean, again, I sat down today and, with this, and I was like, we're going to sit with Jon, and I know by the end of this, I'm going to be upset. Like, I'm going to be emotional, go back to like the feelings piece, like, because I'm not going to be able to go out and like experience this immediately. And we're going to walk out of this room right now, and you're going to go do the things that you need to do with the people you need to do them with your partners and your fellow instructors and, other people out there in the industry. And I'm going to do the same. That's just where we are. But I'm not going to get out on the range and kind of, feel and do all that stuff. But I'm driven to do that and get out there. It's
motivated.
It's a double-edged sword what I do, because I'm extraordinarily privileged and get to talk to amazing humans and instructors and people with experiences like you, but I don't always get to get out there on the range and
you have to schedule these on ranges.
Yeah. So
problem solving.
That said, for people that do want to do that with you, man, I mean, you're a very organized, very structured dude. And what I find when I see what you put out there, whether that's from, like a social media thing to a YouTube video to, what's on your website, it's all very clear. You got it all lined out. But maybe you could just tell people like, hey, if they want to get with you, if they want to, reach out, find out more, get a little bit more information, vet you, if this wasn't enough for them, they want to know a little bit more. How do people do that, with you, man?
So, I mean, you go to the website. The website's the easiest. It's kind of like the central point. So kinetic-consulting.net. And it has links to my YouTube, links to Facebook, links to Instagram, links to everything. Even my LinkedIn that I don't use very often anymore. I use it for the security world.
Same.
But it'll branch out. It kind of takes you everywhere. My blog has literally every podcast I've ever done. I repost it on there, and I give it like a little spot on my website so that everybody can go watch them. Any article I've ever written is on there because hey, there's an easy place to kind of see where my head's at with certain things. And then YouTube, my videos come out every week, so you can kind of hear my thoughts and my what I think of when it comes to certain equipment or what I'm doing that week talking about. But yeah, I don't do unboxing videos and that kind of thing. So if you're into that, you got to find somebody else. But if you want to get better and you want to actually train and you want to kind of learn, right? Learn about you, learn about how you can shoot better. My website's the best one. And on the homepage is the list of classes that I have for 2023 that are open enrollment. Yeah, it's the easiest way.
I mean, I love that. I mean, part of it is just how much you're giving away, right? For quote unquote free. Mm-hmm. But knowing how that pays itself forward in the end. And that's what I get when I go to your website. I look at it and I go, look, anything you want to know, you're going to get from this guy. But when you're really ready to step it up and make the investment, you're going to get that experience. And I really appreciate you making the investment today in your time and energy to be here with me and share this stuff, man. And I know there's listeners out there that are going to be like, fuck, I'm on this right now. But for me, it really just accentuates all the things I already thought I knew. And so I appreciate you, dude, for coming in today. It's what I expected, and it's everything everybody told me I would get from you. And so again, I can't thank you enough for the time and the commitment that you made to be here today. And I know you're a busy dude. You got a lot of stuff going on. So thanks, brother.
Absolutely, man.
Appreciate you.
Take care.